friend Stevie from South Dakota. We've got work to do every day. So I just went to the grocery store, and I was a young kid wearing a mask. They have to. And I said, do you remember in the good old days? I said that when rain's on there, but anyway, the good old days when whatever community you lived in, you just knew if there was a flu bug or a cold virus going around, and obviously the more serious the flu and the more serious symptoms people had, the more you knew about it, right? I mean, usually people don't talk much about a mild flu or a mild cold, but I pretty much guarantee you every year of my life, it's, there's a period there, whether it's a month or 2 or 3, where the community just knows that there's something afoot. There's a flu or a cold. And we don't need to see it on television. We don't need to read it in the newspaper. We just know. The word of mouth travels that fast. And here's my basic point, and I think it's just one more telling thing about what a complete hoax and fraud this thing is. Am I saying the coronavirus is not real? No. Is it possible it's a bioengineered? If it is real, it was definitely introduced by the bioweapons labs that the various empires run, particularly ours. In fact, we have a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, China, which some of you might find interesting. So, at any rate, regardless of what this thing is or isn't, wouldn't you think that a pandemic, which is what the WHO declared it to be on March 11th, and Trump 2 days later, the maverick independent, I'm going to buck the system president that he is, laid down, it was like the rape of Dan Keene, and WHO and the UN and Bill Gates just come on and take over America, pass all these draconian laws and maskings and social distancing and contact tracing, just do whatever you want, because I'm not really the leader of the country. I'm just a guy that's a puppet that goes along with whatever the New World Order apparatus tells me to do. I don't know, especially Christian people. I'm a born-again Christian. I do not know how Christian people did not see through that guy when he, was up for a presidential I call it selection, not election. I don't know how they didn't see through him. And I still think, even though he's allowed all this to go down, the WHO, it's really, it's 3 entities, the WHO and Bill Gates, who basically is the WHO. Whatever the WHO does, whatever Bill Gates does, that's what the nations do. So the WHO, Bill Gates, United Nations, it's basically a New World Order takedown of the nations, particularly the United States. It's definitely been planned. If you watch Event 201, and there's so much other evidence, but the Event 201 in New York City in October is the most obvious, where Bill Gates Foundation, along with Johns Hopkins University, that place is a joke, they sponsored a confab with all these big corporate people, CEOs, whatever, and it was a simulated pandemic. And believe it or not, the virus that they used to simulate this pandemic was called the novel corona, and they actually had these like pillows made out for the participants in the shape of this virus that we see pictures of all the time. I mean, just to know that is just enough to know that it was planned. Of course, Trump in October 2017 said this is just the calm before the storm. So a press person goes, well, Mr. Trump, what do you mean? What storm are you talking about? And he goes, well, you'll see. And that was October 2017. Trump's been in on it. The top players are in on it. Bill Gates, whatever. But the point being is that we don't live in the United States of America. And I've said for a long time that we don't have a republic, really. We have the appearance of a republic. And obviously it's still better here than a lot of countries in the world, no doubt about it. But I've said, like 15 years ago, I said, well, the republic is gone, we just don't know it yet. And I'm hoping, you know it now, right? I mean, with all that's been going down, like I said, it's not the United States of America, it's the United Nations of America. And honestly, if you can't see that, you just are completely hoodwinked by the mainstream media / government narrative propaganda. And that's what it is. It's a propaganda narrative designed to take down the United States of America, what is left of the United States. And so we become obedient slaves in the animal farm. Wear your mask, do this, do that, don't get close to anybody, da-da-da-da-da. And you know, keep your restaurant hours short, maybe keep close the restaurant, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so my point being is that back to this thing where every community knows when something's afoot. So here we have this so-called pandemic that we literally shut the world down and locked it down, business-wise, you know, people-wise, entertainment-wise, whatever, everywhere, every which way but loose-wise. And this pandemic, I travel, you know, to a lot of communities, and I have yet to hear people say, oh yeah, this pandemic is really going around, it's really nasty, a lot of people are sick, the hospitals are full. I haven't heard that going back to March. And now all these numbers are going up. And by the way, this might go on record as being the first pandemic that is a pandemic based on completely faulty testing and faulty reporting of numbers. And it's the first symptomless pandemic probably in the history of mankind. The good old-fashioned pandemics, you had people that were dying. I mean, like, I tell a story, I remember my dad telling me when I was a young kid that his father, this is in northern South Dakota in a rural farming community, so no connections to, you know, flying and, you know, other countries, whatever. You had isolated communities. And if I remember the story right, my dad's dad went over to his neighbor to check on him. He said, don't come near or don't come in. He said, I got 3 dead daughters upstairs. And that was the Spanish, what's supposedly the Spanish flu. Now, I haven't really studied that whole thing, how it started or whatever, but I take it that one was pretty nasty. I mean, just from the anecdote of my dad, and like I said, in a rural area. But with this pandemic, everyone's got it. And I say that in a hyperbolic sense of the word, but although I'm not exaggerating much, everybody seems to have it, but the symptoms are either very mild or there's no symptoms at all. I mean, people, you got to start thinking, and I seriously, I mean, I talk about this stuff, I talk about this stuff with this cashier, and they look at you like you're from outer space, like, oh, how dare you, sir, think, and how dare you challenge the reigning narrative of the government media. I mean, we have to believe them. I mean, this is kind of the unspoken language out there. And I had a refreshing visit with a woman like 2 or 3 months ago, and just on one of my walks, and she and I just like agreed on about everything. And since then, I've talked to many people. I have yet to talk to somebody that just has seen it for what it is from day one. You know, I used to say that, you know, I was worried the last several years I was starting to get too paranoid, and now that I see all this stuff going down and I see how it works and what a fraud and a hoax it is, I'm telling people I don't think I was paranoid enough. Oh, people. You know, I'm going to finish with a Mark Twain quote. It's easier to fool people, said Mark Twain, than to convince them they've been fooled. Can I convince you? Stevie from South Dakota.